Good evening and welcome back to another episode of The Longing. Today we are going to be starting a brand new book. We're going to be starting the Iliad. Iliad 1 to 13, which I'm not entirely sure how accurate that is, just because there is the Iliad 9 to 17. So we'll just have to take this with a grain of salt, so to speak, unless that's meant to be 14 to 17 and it's just been written wrong. Either way, we're going to be starting this one, so we might as well begin. The Iliad of Homer. The Iliad. Book 1. The Contention of Achilles and Agamemnon. In the war of Troy, the Greeks, having sacked some of the neighbouring towns and taken from thence two beautiful captives, Chryses and Briseis, allotted the first to Agamemnon and the last to Achilles. Chryses, the father of Chryses and priest of Apollo, comes to the Grecian camp to ransom her, with which the action of the poem opens, in the 10th year of the siege. The priest, being refused and insolently dismissed by Agamemnon, entreats for vengeance from his god, who inflicts a pestilence on the Greeks. Achilles calls a council and encourages Chalcas to declare the cause of it, who attributes it to the refusal of Chryses. The king, being obliged to send back his captive, enters into a furious contest with Achilles, which Nestor pacifies. However, as he had the absolute command of the army, he seizes on Briseis in revenge. Achilles, in discontent, withdraws himself and his forces from the rest of the Greeks, and complaining to Thetis, supplicates Jupiter to render them sensible of the wrong done to her son, by giving victory to the Trojans. Jupiter, granting her suit, incenses Juno, between whom the debate runs high, till they are reconciled by the address of Vulcan. The time of 22 days is taken up in this book. 9 during the plague, 1 in the council and quarrel of the princes, and 12 for Jupiter's stay with the Chthyopians, at whose return Thetis prefers her petition. The scene lies in the Grecian camp, then changes to Chrysa, and lastly to Olympus. Achilles' wrath, to Greece the direful spring of woes unnumbered, heavenly goddess sing. That wrath which hurled to Pluto's gloomy reign the souls of mighty chiefs untimely slain, whose limbs unburied on the naked shore devouring dogs and hungry vultures tore. Since great Achilles and Atrides strove, such was the sovereign doom and such the will of Jove. Declare, O Muse, in what ill-fated hour sprung the fierce strife, from what offended power Latona's son a dire contagion spread, and heaped the camp with mountains of the dead. The king of men his reverent priest defied, and for the king's offence the people died. For Chryses sought with costly gifts to gain his captive daughter from the victor's chain. Suppliant the venerable father stands, Apollo's awful ensigns grace his hands. By these he begs, and lowly bending down, extends the sceptre and the laurel crown. He sued to all, but chief implored for grace, the brother kings of Atreus' royal race. Ye kings and warriors, may your vows be crowned, and Troy's proud walls lie level with the ground. May Jove restore you when your toils are o'er, safe to the pleasures of your native shore. But oh, relieve a wretched parent's pain, and give Chryses to these arms again. If mercy fail, yet let my presence move, and dread avenging Phoebus, son of Jove. The Greeks in shouts their joint assent declare, to the priest to reverence and release the fair. Not so Atri... I cannot say these names very well. Not so Atrides, he with kingly pride repulsed the sacred sire, and thus replied: Hence on thy life, and fly these hostile plains, nor ask, presumptuous, what the king detains. Hence with thy laurel crown and golden rod, nor trust too far those ensigns of thy God. Mine is thy daughter, priest, and shall remain, and prayers and tears and bribes shall plead in vain. Till time shall rifle every youthful grace, and age dismiss her from my cold embrace. In daily labours of the loom employed, or doomed to deck the bed she once enjoyed. Hence then to Argos shall the maid retire, far from her native soil and weeping sire. Homer invoking the Muse. The trembling priest along the shore returned, and in the anguish of a father mourned. Disconsolate, not daring to complain, silent he wandered by the sounding main, till safe at distance to his God he prays, the God who darts around the world his rays. O Smintheus, sprung from fair Latona's line, thou guardian power of Scylla the divine, thou source of light whose Tenedos adores, and whose bright presence gilds thy Chrysa's shores. If e'er with wreaths I hung thy sacred fane, or fed the flames with fat of oxen slain. God of the silver bow, thy shafts employ, avenge thy servant and the Greeks destroy. Thus Chrysis prayed, the favouring power attends, and from Olympus' lofty top descends. Bent was his bow the Grecian hearts to wound, fierce as he moved, his silver shafts resound. Breathing revenge, a sudden night he spread, and gloomy darkness rolled about his head. The fleet in view, he twanged his deadly bow, and hissing fly the feathered flates below. On mules and dogs the infection first began, and last the vengeful arrows fixed in man. For 9 long nights through all the dusky air the pyres thick flaming shot a dismal glare. But ere the 10th revolving day was run, inspired by Juno, Thetis' godlike son, convened to counsel all the Grecian train, for much the goddess mourned her heroes slain. The assembly seated, rising o'er the rest, Achilles thus the king of men addressed: Why leave we not the fatal Trojan ashore, and measure back the seas we crossed before? The plague destroying whom the sword would spare, 'tis time to save the few remains of war. But let some prophet or some sacred sage explore the cause of great Apollo's rage, or learn the wasteful vengeance to remove by mystic dreams, for dreams descend from Jove. If broken vows this heavy curse have laid, let altars smoke and hecatombs be paid. So heaven atoned shall dying Greece restore, and Phoebus dart his burning shafts no more. He said and sat, when Chalcas thus replied, Chalcas the wise, the Grecian priest and guide, that sacred seer whose comprehensive view the past, the present, and the future knew. Uprising slow, the venerable sage thus spoke the prudence and the fears of age. Beloved of Jove, Achilles, wouldst thou know why angry Phoebus bends his fatal bow? First give thy faith and plight a prince's word of sure protection by thy power and sword. For I must speak what wisdom would conceal, and truths insidious to the great reveal. Bold is the task when subjects, grown too wise, instruct a monarch where his error lies. For though we deem the short-lived fury past, 'tis sure the mighty will revenge at last. To whom, Pelides, from thy inmost soul, speak what thou knowst, and speak without control. E'en then by that God I swear who rules the day, to whom thy hands the vows of Greece convey, and whose blessed oracles thy lips declare. Long as Achilles breathes this vital air, no daring Greek of all the numerous band against his priest shall lift an impious hand. Not e'en the chief by whom our hosts are led, the King of Kings, shall touch that sacred head. And with that, we come to the end of the 10 minutes, and thus the end of the episode. So I think this one is going to take us a fair amount of time to read, just because I am struggling with the words, as is probably quite evident. But never mind, we are going to push through. So I'm going to say thank you very much for joining me today. I hope you all have a wonderful morning, evening, afternoon or night, no matter what time of day it is. I hope you have a wonderful one of it. And as always, we will be back tomorrow for more of The Longing. Goodbye.